What is going on, guys? Well, we got some pretty major news regarding the Scream franchise that was dropped out of nowhere today, and I don't know how to feel about it. So we're going to talk about it and work through these feelings together. I'm very curious where all you guys stand on this. So if you have not been up to date on all of the insanity regarding the production of Scream VII, essentially, you had the franchise star of the past two films, Melissa Barrera, who was unceremoniously fired from Scream VII. The reasons listed were some posts that she made in regards to the Israel conflict going on right now. And there was a lot of controversy that came out of that. A lot of people saying that she deserved to be fired. A lot of people saying that she did nothing wrong. And a lot of questions regarding free speech and all that was kind of the theme of all those conversations. And not too long after that, it was announced that I would say series co-star of the past two films of Jenna Ortega announced that she was not going to be in Scream 7 as well. And a lot of people speculated that she dropped out in support of Melissa. The reason that her and her management gave was that the production delays were going to conflict with the production of Wednesday season 2. So she was already pretty much out before the Melissa Barrera thing happened. And you can read into that what you want. We'll never really know the truth. There's always spins. There's always PR spins. And sometimes it's not a spin. Sometimes it was actually the truth. But regardless, the two faces of Scream for the past two films, the main two characters that, among the other two from the core four, but the main two faces that this franchise was very much reforming itself around in this new trilogy were out. And then not too long after that, Christopher Landon, the guy that directed the Happy Death Day movies, as well as Freaky, who was supposed to be the director of Scream 7, also bowed out of the film. And so it was just an absolute clusterfuck, an absolute mess, and it just cast a gigantic cloud over Scream 7. And I'm one of those people that I had major issues with Scream 6, but I still enjoyed it fine enough, and I enjoyed Scream 5 quite a bit, that I was really on board with continuing on with these characters and these stories. And they were in the middle of their arcs, especially Melissa Barrera's character. The Scream 6 is not a good ending for those characters. So I very much wanted to see those stories carried on, and I liked the fact that we kind of left some of the main characters behind from the first trilogy or the first four films, and we're starting to branch off. For me, it was time to do that. So that was a major disappointment, and really any direction that they went was going to feel just like damage control. It was going to feel like them just grasping at straws, trying to do whatever they could marketing-wise to get people to still show up at Scream 7 and kind of cover up all of the nastiness that was surrounding this. And one of the first things, of course, that they went to that fans knew was going to be their go-to move, their ace in the hole, was going back to franchise star Neve Campbell, who played Sidney Prescott in the first 5 films, and she did not show up in 6 because of salary disputes. Well, it's been officially announced today on Neve Campbell's Instagram, and I believe Kevin Williamson's Instagram as well, that Scream 7 is going to bring Sidney back. Neve Campbell is officially signed on, and Kevin Williamson, who was the writer of the first 2 films, I believe he also wrote the 4th film. Don't quote me on that, but he for sure wrote the first 2 films. He went on to do a lot of things in the 90s and even in the 2000s. A pretty prolific horror writer, and certainly one of the biggest key ingredients to the best Scream films. He's going to be the director this time around, and he's only ever directed one other film. It was in the early 2000s or late 90s. It was called Teaching Mrs. Tingle. I've seen it once. I really don't remember much about it, so I can't tell you whether or not it's a good movie or not, or he did a good job as a director. It's probably something I need to revisit, but nonetheless, you have the franchise writer coming on to direct, and so there's a lot of interesting things to unpack here. It's also worth noting that the Ready or Not people who directed the last 2 films are going to stay on as executive producers. The person that wrote Scream 5 and Scream 6 is going to be writing this one. So I find it interesting that Kevin Williamson is directing but not writing. I would be much more excited if he was doing both. But nonetheless, Neve Campbell coming back, Kevin Williamson returning to the franchise as director for the first time, and the writer of 5 and 6 continuing on to write this one. I don't really know how to feel about this because, you would think as a Scream fan, just hearing that Neve Campbell's involved in any capacity would immediately get you excited. And I don't think that this scenario leads me to feel that way. And I don't know if any of you guys agree or disagree with that. I don't blame Neve Campbell whatsoever for taking this job. I'm one of those people that, you can call integrity and all that stuff into the conversation regarding all the craziness going on with Melissa Barrera and how they treated her. But when it comes to people's careers and their money and their livelihood and how they take care of their family, I really don't judge people too harshly on when they decide to take the route that's going to get them money so they can take care of their family. But I do think it's worth talking about. I do think that it does create conversations regarding Neve Campbell coming back to this franchise, that, she caused a huge stir by being very public about the pay dispute and the reasons why she was not in Scream VI, and that she did not feel like this company valued her as the franchise star, and, caused a lot of conversation regarding women's treatment in this industry and pay disputes and pay gaps and everything like that, and deservedly so. But I think the message of all of that gets a little diluted, a little muddy when you come back for the seventh film, presumably because they paid you what you wanted, while the franchise lead just got the boot in the ass and was publicly branded basically by this company as being anti-Semitic. So, I don't know what Neve Campbell's thoughts are on that situation. I don't know if she's talked publicly about it. I don't know what her thoughts are on Melissa Barrera either. Maybe they weren't the best of friends. Maybe she didn't like the fact that Melissa Barrera was the new franchise lead. Maybe she never really agreed with the direction of taking the franchise away from Sidney and Gale and Dewey. Maybe she is not a fan of any of that. And so she's very much feeling like she's kind of coming back to reclaim the franchise and doesn't really care what's going on with Melissa Barrera or Jenna Ortega or anybody else. Or it could simply be a situation of she very much has sympathy for Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, and she's a fan of theirs and wishes they were involved, but they're not. And they've pulled a dump truck of money up to her house and said, please come back. We have no other options. And she's taken that route. And again, I don't fault her for that whatsoever. But it just gives me complicated feelings. This announcement is supposed to get us excited. It's supposed to make us go, fuck yes, Sidney's back. Fuck yes, Scream VII's back on track. And I just don't feel that way. I just don't. And I wish I could get excited for that. If this announcement came 7 months ago, this would be awesome, especially having Kevin Williamson as the director. I'm eternally curious about that, and how cool and like poetic, I guess, it would be if he came back and delivered just a kick-ass Scream film. That would be very cool. But it's just very odd and muddy and complicated. I love the character of Sidney Prescott. She's one of my favorite Final Girls. I think that she is very important to the Scream franchise. Yet I've been on record numerous times of saying that, by the fourth film, I feel like the Sidney, Gale, and Dewey thing was kind of played out. And it's like, okay, we've seen enough of these characters. We've seen enough of them surviving Ghostface at all costs. At some point, it absolutely does take away the intensity and the stakes. And for as many people that cry foul about Dewey's fate in the fifth film, I thought that was an appropriate thing to happen. To me, that raised the stakes. To me, that brought the intensity back. And I think they should have followed through with that with Scream VI. That was one of my biggest issues with that movie, was like literally everybody in that movie is surviving so much bullshit, but especially Gale. It's like, okay, I'm not saying you have to kill them all off. I'm not saying we have to do that. We don't have to pull a Star Wars sequel trilogy move, but there's absolutely some validity to saying that the amount of plot armor that some of these characters has starts to affect the quality of these movies. So the announcement that was directly on Instagram on Neve Campbell's page says, Sidney Prescott is coming back. It's always been such a blast and an honor to get to play Sidney in the Scream movies. My appreciation for these films and for what they have meant to me has never waned. I'm very happy and proud to say I've been asked in the most respectful way with a big-ass stack of cash to bring Sidney back to the screen, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I mean, very PR statement. I'm sure all of that is true. She has to love this character. I mean, this character is what she's going to be remembered as, for as many other things as she's done. this is the character that she's going to be known for forever. So it always is good to know that your franchise star loves the character. It's always disappointing when you have people that don't respect the legacy of their work, or they don't seem to understand the legacy of their work or the fandom involved. So it's always a good thing. And then you have on Williamson's, I'm reading this off of Variety, by the way. On Kevin Williamson, it says, it's been nearly 30 years since my very first script, Scream, was directed by the legendary Wes Craven. I never would have predicted what it would become, or that I would be directing the 7th installment of the franchise. I am overcome with gratitude and excitement, and I can't wait to take this journey with Neve and the entire Scream family as we bring back Sidney Prescott in the next chapter of the Scream franchise. Thank you to all the Scream fans. You are the gift that keeps giving. And again, that feels 100% genuine. I am excited for Kevin Williamson. I don't know how good of a job he's going to do. You never really know. You know, a directing job is a far cry of a difference than writing. But I hope that it turns out awesome, because that would be a very cool little footnote for his career there, to come back and direct one of the better installments in the franchise that he created. The other odd part of it too, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, and this kind of, and I know I'm kind of going over the same points, but like they're really hammering home the celebration of the return of Sidney. Sidney was only absent for one movie. And I know that was a big deal for some people. I've already explained why it wasn't for me. Narratively, I didn't feel like the movie needed her. I didn't even feel like the movie needed Gale, to be completely honest with you. But I find it odd, and maybe I'm just not as emotionally invested in the character as some people. But as much as I love Sidney, her being absent for one movie, 7 being this huge triumphant return, I'm like, it's only been 2 years since we've seen her. So I don't know. There's not a whole lot else to talk about with this one. This is just kind of a short little news update. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for Neve Campbell to come back as Sidney? Do you hate the fact that the character is coming back? Are you kind of just feeling complicated and a little unsure about everything like me? Explain all that down below, please. What do you feel about Kevin Williamson coming on to a director? Does that excite you, or does that worry you? And even more so than anything else, what do you feel about the writer of Scream 5 and 6 staying on for this one, given that this is the person that has created all of these character arcs and the storyline that was supposed to be, I would assume, concluded in Scream 7, and is absolutely not going to be, and it's going to be a completely different direction, I would imagine. I don't know how they're going to explain the absence of those two characters, presumably any of the other characters that we're following. I don't know if the other two of the core 4 are coming back. I doubt it. But how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that writer is the right person to do that, or do you feel like they should have had Kevin Williamson write this movie and direct it? They would probably have to delay the movie, and that's probably the reason why they're not doing it. But that's the one thing that if I found out that Kevin Williamson was writing this as well as directing it, I would feel a lot more comfortable about this, because to me, that would give me a lot more confidence in whatever this new direction is going to be. But let me know all of your thoughts down below, guys, and we'll talk about it, because I'm sure there's going to be a myriad of opinions on this one. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my Scream reviews, and I'm also going to put the video up here when I talked about the Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega exit, if you want to see my thoughts on all of that. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future, and as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.